All right, folks, welcome to the Living Free podcast where we talk about building a life without limits. This is our fourth official episode as a standalone podcast, which is also syndicating on the Living Free in Tennessee podcast. Today is June 25th, Wednesday, 2025. And I've got a special guest today to share his journey from before he woke up to taking control of his life. And it's not something that I think he focuses primarily on his podcast. So I think it'll be a good conversation. It's going to be Scott Armstrong from Rebunked News. And I got to know him in person at Midwest Preparedness Project. So that's the reason you go to these events, guys, is you meet people in person who you maybe have interacted with digitally and you're like, are they for real? And then you find out they are for real. And that's pretty cool. He's a musician. He's been organizing a meetup for singles who are unshot. So I guess I'm not supposed to say that word on YouTube, I guess. I've already got a strike, dude, at the moment. Currently got a strike. We are live on my Rumble right now, though. So, at least the video will be there if we get pulled down. Anyway, it's going to be a great conversation. Before I jump into that, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show, which is the June 29th. That's this Sunday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So you can fry outside at my house, except it'll be raining, so it'll be okay. We're going to do a rabbit processing demonstration free, but we are starting with a potluck from 1 to 2. I've had a few people say, do I have to stay to watch the rabbits be processed? The answer is no. You can just come hang out. We're actually processing them in a specific place on the property if you're not ready to experience that part. But it's a great way to get to know a few homesteaders in the area. And you can sign up at livingfreeintennessee.com. I also have 2 sponsors today. The first one is Holler Roast Coffee. You can enjoy fresh craft roasted coffee that's delivered directly to your doorstep. And right now we're doing a pre-sale where if you buy gift cards at different levels, you get digital free downloads. And if you go at a high enough level, you get a little extra cash for your cash. Find out more about that at hollerroast.com. The second sponsor of today's show is Above Phone. Above Phone is a privacy-based cell phone. So you don't have to actually share all the data that you are currently sharing right now with Google and everybody and by indirect methods then to the government. You could start taking control of your digital hygiene. And starting with Above Phone, which is a really easy way to do that. They have a setup where you just pop open the phone and it works. And then you can use apps that are similar to apps you use that are more privacy based. And if you want to use one of your bad apps like Gmail, I know who you are. Actually, you know who I am too, because I still have a Gmail. You can put it in its own little place on the phone where it can't access other things outside of that besides what you give it permission to access, which is a great way to get started. If you get confused on setup, every phone comes with a free 45-minute consultation. My advice is start using the phone and then book that consultation. So, check out more at abovephone.com. And if you use the coupon code LivingFreeTN, you will get $50 off your device. With that, I do want to say, Scott, welcome to the show. It's taken me way too long to get you on.
Well, thank you, Nicole, for having me. I'm truly honored to be here. This is great. I've been following you forever. So this is
I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I met Jack Spirko down at a thing called what was it called? Float Fest in Texas. And that was in 2022. And that was on my way moving out here from Oregon. And so I was familiar with his work, with your work, and like John Bush and all these guys. Like I really familiar. Well, I kind of really got plugged in through the Freedom Cell movement out in Oregon. That was our main lifeline. In Portland and Eugene, we'd started some pretty big Freedom Cell networks and communities, and we were doing some awesome stuff like meetups all the time. That was my first real introduction to the whole idea of like agorism and just and it was in 2020. So that was like our response. My immediate response was to find other like-minded people. We used the Freedom Cell network, and that led me to John Bush, and then just really diving into just preparedness, getting the preparedness mindset in light of everything that was going on, and led me to your work. And come to find out that you're an exiled, well, not exiled, but a refugee from Oregon as well in Tennessee. So that's amazing.
Yeah, my friends on the East Coast call me an oregano.
Exactly.
So I'm an oregano as well.
Yeah.
Born and raised in the Portland area, lived in Ashland for a long time, Ashland, Medford area. So, and just my final stint was in North Portland where it was very hip, and it was there that I realized there was a cultural problem in the area that was going to get worse, and it did.
Yeah.
Although if I still had that house, I'd be a millionaire right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, but I can attest to the fact that you got out in the nick of time because it went off the rails.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I know that I don't know a lot about your origins, so let's go back to like high school time. What was that, Scott, like?
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called McMinnville. Another synchronicity. What I noticed, there's so many towns in Oregon and Tennessee that have the same names, and so I knew. So I grew up in McMinnville, Oregon, and I remember hearing the lore about it, how it was named after somebody who was from McMinnville, Tennessee, who settled in Oregon, and they kind of adopted the name from the Tennessee McMinnville. So I knew about that, but then my mom and dad, I had great parents, great family, great upbringing. My mom was a counselor at the high school at our high school, and my dad worked in like the technology field, like more on like the hardware side. And so my mom had summers off, so we would travel, like we had an RV, we'd travel the country. So just a great upbringing. And it's really interesting too, because it's a really interesting, and this will ties into what we're going to get into here. I feel very grateful for my parents, my family, the upbringing, all that stuff. It's just, they had very high expectations, and it was like, which is good, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like it was, I guess now what they would call like helicopter parents, I guess. Like it was just like, I was even into my high school years, it was like I wasn't allowed to watch certain rated R movies, and just like very domineering. And but that's just because they love my sister and I so much, and I can't fault them for that. But what it created was, I remember being a kid, and like I've always been kind of like an internet nerd type of hacker type guy. So like even as a kid, we had a personal computer, and I was like learning how to like infiltrate other computer systems and stuff. And I was like one of like early internet like user as like a 10-year-old. And I was probably going to places I should not have been as a 10-year-old. And I saw a lot of this stuff, and it was, I in my mind, I started like figuring out ways to like go around some of the protections that my parents had put on the computer for me to go access things I probably shouldn't. And so I started creating in my mind, like kind of like almost like a criminality type of thing, where I was like, oh, I could get away with stuff, and like this fascination with that. And then into high school, since my mom worked there, I had to go to school every day, she monitored my attendance. So I was in class every day, and I was in like all honors classes, and I graduated with 3.95 GPA. And, but it was like around 16 years old that I had my first drink. I was always opposed to drinking. I was like, no, you can't. Because obviously that was instilled in me. But then I tried it and tried some weed at the same time. It was like within a week of each other, I think. And then that kind of opened up a new thing to me, where I was like, oh, this is another great way for me to rebel and be kind of that criminal mindset, I guess, in a lot of ways, like just seeing what I could get away with. And I got in trouble twice at 2 different parties for drinking. And it was like a family catastrophe, right? It like shattered this paradigm that I had like all these years. My parents had this idea of me of like this perfect little angel child, and all of a sudden, in like one night, it was just shattered. And I was like, and it kind of sent like ripples that kind of reverberated for a long time, because that carried on. And so I was like, there was like some restrictions, like I was grounded for a whole summer. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere or do anything because of one of those incidents. But during that summer, I learned how to play guitar. I just played the guitar for like 8 hours a day. And so that's cool. But at the same time, the family dynamic kind of shifted and changed a little bit. And then that led to even more like restrictive, like you're not allowed to go out. And I would still try and push the envelope, like going out at our lunch breaks to go get high and stuff. Like I took every opportunity I could to go defy and get loaded and all this stuff. And then when I graduated, and then I ended up going to University of Oregon. So I moved, like second I graduated, I'd already signed up for summer school because I knew I just wanted to get out of the house as quickly as possible. So I moved to Eugene, lived in a dorm. And like literally the day I was on day one of like being free, or in my mind, what I thought was free, I immediately walked around the neighborhood to try and find the first people I could that could buy me beer. I was looking for weed. I went and rented all the rated R movies I wasn't allowed to watch. And it was like immediately day one, I was like completely just going to do all the stuff I wasn't allowed to do.
Okay, so let's take a break here.
Yeah.
So what was your mindset like before you went to college, sort of in that time that you had started rebelling as a teenager, as regards, like, did you really see your opponent as your parents, or was it beyond your parents at that point?
I mean, just thinking back to my mindset back then, I really was just, that's a really good question. I mean, I think it was more so, I guess I just always have, and maybe this has led to my current journey. It's like, when you tell me to do something, I'm going to want to do the complete opposite. When you force me into into compliance with something, see, look, my shirt says compliance is violence, right? So it's like when you force me to comply with something, I'm just going to automatically rebel and want to do the complete opposite, I guess. And maybe that's where that came from. That's an interesting thought. And so I think it was just the idea in my mind. Again, I give my parents credit. They're very loving, gentle, amazing people doing their best. I don't blame them. But I literally just feel like, yeah, I felt I was being oppressed, and that was my rebellion. Was in my mind, this self-destruction was my way of like rectifying the tyranny that I lived under in my mind. Like that's what I was thinking, I think. And I wanted to experience, I wanted to indulge, and to me that was freedom. And what I learned was led me to complete enslavement. But we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, so I can understand. I mean, that's part of that's just a natural part of the teenage brain, right? Like we have to go through a time of rebelling to establish our own identity.
Yeah.
You just had a lot to rebel against.
Apparently so.
I had a mom who's like, if you want to drink, I will pour you a glass of wine and show you how to drink that glass of wine at home where you won't get. That made it a whole lot less fun.
Yeah. I know. See, so I don't know. I think there's some value in that approach.
Yeah.
And you can pull out and look at like a larger scale, like some of these, because in America, it's so like the war on drugs and all this stuff. And you go to some like European countries where they're like, yeah, dude, you can just go to the store and buy it. They don't like typically have like this massive problem that we have here with it, because it's like,
well, they still do though. I don't know. Yeah, my rebellion was if I didn't like my teacher, I would get bad grades in that class, which totally only hurt me. So it's funny that as a teenager, your rebellions only hurt you.
Exactly. That's 100%. So
okay, so then you got to college and like literally there's nobody to tell you no anymore, and you were like, I'm going knucking futz right now.
That was exactly it. And then come like the fall term when school actually started, I had so many other my high school people that I graduated with, they went to U of O too. So I had a lot of friends there. They all moved into the freshman dorms. I had a buddy, one of my pretty much my best friend at the time. He moved down to Eugene too, but he wasn't going to school. He was just looking for a job and got a job at like a restaurant. And we both got apartments. We rented a 2-bedroom apartment off of campus, but like in campus housing neighborhood, like a few blocks from U of O. And U of O is a huge party school. And so we were in an apartment complex, and the whole complex, it wasn't a complex. It was basically just 8 individual apartments and like a strip there. And every single person around us was like upperclassmen, like juniors and seniors, or they were all 21. And, became really good friends with a lot of them. And they were just our immediate, like, anytime, day or night, we wanted beer, alcohol, anything, they were more than happy to help us out. So I lasted in school maybe a year.
So you made it through your freshman year, and you maybe
I don't even know, dude. Honestly, like I might have dropped out before the end of my.
How did your parents react when you dropped out?
I mean, at this time they knew that I was just partying and I was not getting good grades. I think I left with like a 2-point-something GPA, like 2.5 or something, and I was just like not going to school. School is not the priority at all, and so I dropped. I mean, it was kind of a decision that we all kind of came to. It's like, hey, maybe this isn't the best option right now. And, so I hung in there in Eugene for a little bit. And then my parents were living in Portland at the time. So I moved back to Portland after that and started working at Home Depot.
Okay. So then you got a job at Home Depot. What lessons did you learn at that job?
At Home Depot? Anything? Well, it's interesting because I did. And my dad did instill in me like a good work ethic and all this stuff. And that was my first job. Like I had like little high school jobs and stuff, but that was like my first real job, I guess. I got hired as a cashier, and I found this like it was really easy for me to excel at that. Like I was like walking like away from my register, helping people in the aisles. I was like stacking the lumber that was right in front of me there. Like I was always busy doing something. Like I invented this new innovative way to ring up customers. That basically they had this. Yeah, I invented this thing, and I think that a lot of the stores like adopted a similar thing. But basically, what I would do is like if there was a line of people, I would like open a cash register and walk up and scan their cart, and then I would like print out a suspend ticket, give it to them, and like give that to the cashier. Your stuff's already rung up, and I'd go down the line and ring people up, and like they were like, "Whoa, that's really cool." And then they started doing that with like mobile carts that they order inventory with, and so it's like I kind of like invented this. And so anyway, I impressed them, and one day I applied. I saw a position open for a department supervisor, and I applied for it as a cashier, and that's like, you know, several steps between a cashier and a department supervisor. And I got an interview, and I got the position. I was like 20 years old, 22 years old, maybe. No, let's see. I would have been like 20 years old. And like, so then I was like this youngster, like running a department, and, you know, it was like a good increase in pay and like all this responsibility. And I'd never been in a leadership position, but I thought when they called me for an interview, I thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh God, I'm in trouble. They like, and they're like, no, we want to actually interview you. Like you do good work. And so I don't know, from there, I really took that job very, very, very seriously. And I was there for about 6 years, and they were kind of grooming me for like store management level. Like, yeah. And so I just like working in retail. I'm sure a lot of you know, it's just like, it's insane. But then I was like in a kind of a supervisory role, and I didn't really have a lot of supervisory skills, but they taught me a lot of stuff like delegation, follow up, how to do performance reviews and interviewing. And so anyway, yeah, I was like kind of like a little protege to a lot of the upper management people. And I was like always willing to work overnights if they needed to, or just whatever. But, you know, and then throughout this whole time, I was kind of drinking every now and then. Like it was just kind of a thing. It was always there.
Yeah, so because socially you're supposed to drink.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And there's
like,
a few guys at work that we would go out and drink and stuff.
Yeah.
So that
and then in the trades, it's more. It's expected that you're drinking.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Especially back then. I think between then and now, there's been a huge shift in like the overall like societal stigma against people that are in recovery. Like it used to be, you were like lame if you quit drinking, but now it's like I think it's the cool thing to do now, which is great. But anyway, so, you know.
So during that time at Home Depot, what was your mindset like? Were you feeling like, I'm going to make a career out of this?
Yeah,
this totally. Is awesome.
100%. Yeah, I was 100%. Like, I'm going to be like a store manager, district manager, like all this stuff. Like
politically, where were you at? Were you Democrat, Republican?
Well, I would say, okay, so it's funny. Growing up, my mom was a Democrat. My dad was a Republican. And I'd spend a lot of time with my dad, like going on father son, like we had season tickets to the Oregon State Beavers, so we'd go to the Beavers games like every weekend. We'd go on all these fishing trips, like going salmon fishing on the Pacific Ocean. We did that at least once a year, sometimes more. And it was like, so I was pretty tight with my dad, and he always listened to like Michael Savage. That was his thing. So I remember growing up riding around listening to Michael Savage, and I was like, yeah, liberalism is a mental disorder. Yeah. Like, and so
that really helped your relationship with your mom, didn't it?
Well, you know, it's really funny because my mom and dad, when I was young, like the Clinton years, so I would have been like, you know, 10, 12, 14 years old, they would fight about politics. That's it. The only time I ever saw them fight was over politics. And then one day they made the decision to never talk politics again, and I never saw them fight ever again. And I remember my dad would like give her a hard time, and he would like egg her on, and she'd get really upset. And so that was the only time I ever saw conflict in the house, was over like Bill Clinton and politics. One year I dressed up as Bill Clinton for Halloween just to like troll my mom, kind of like, it was kind of a funny thing. But anyway, I had like a Bill Clinton like mask, like a rubber mask, and I was just.
Those are always fun to trick or treating.
Yeah, so I was just goofing around. But anyway, yeah, I would say I was always kind of like, but then like during the 2000s, like I feel like I was like, oh well, I was like, you know, this is during the Iraq War, post 9/11. I was like, yeah, we got to go get those terrorists, man. They hate our freedom, like all that stuff. Like I was fully like Bill O'Reilly, like, yeah, whatever Bill O'Reilly said would be my worldview, I guess. I really wasn't plugged into politics though. Like I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention. I just had a surface level understanding of it. And I listened to Michael Savage, and I listened to so whatever the mainstream Fox News, Bill O'Reilly talking points were, that was my worldview at the time, and I never even had no conception of even looking any further than that until about 2010. Yeah.
So how did you fall into addiction?
Yeah. So again, a lot of this was just like alcohol was always there, and it really kind of just compounded when I met a gal. And now here's the thing. So I'm going to tell this story. This is the sequence of events. I don't blame anybody for it. These are all 100% my choices, my decision. But just to give context, I met a gal, and we like fell in love, and she worked at the same Home Depot I worked at. Okay. So we started dating. We got pretty serious after a few months, and she ended up moving in to my apartment. We were cohabitating and talking about the future. So it created this situation though where there was a lot of enmeshment, right? We were working together, living together, dating, the whole thing. And then I find out that she from a coworker that she'd slept with another guy that we worked with, right? This other guy. And I confronted her about it, and she admitted to it. And I was like, oh my God. So at that point I had a decision to make, and obviously, what I chose to do was to try to stick it out, give her a second chance, because in order to like leave that relationship, it felt like it was too much. Like I'd have to, figure out, either move or kick her out, find another, like transfer to a different store. Like it wasn't just breaking up with somebody. It was like an entire, like I'd have to like change my whole life. And so that was too much for me at that time. So we decided to try and work it out. And this dude, it's so crazy. Like in my mind, the solution was, I said, well, why don't we just get married? Because if we get married, then you won't cheat on me, right? So we ended up
totally stops people from cheating every day.
Exactly. So we ended up getting engaged and started planning a wedding. But now that during this time, my drinking did increase quite a bit, just coping with the situation. And then I remember being like very passive aggressive, being just kind of snarky and shitty, and of course that's going to push somebody away. And then I found out that she's still seeing this guy, and really what happened at that point is like, I remember kind of the day I just said, I'm out. And I called my parents, and I'm like, I need out of this situation. I took a leave of absence from work until I could figure out a store transfer, moved out of that apartment. She moved out of the apartment. We'd gotten a dog together too. Cause like, oh yeah, if we get a dog together, that'll help fix it. So she kept the dog, and it was an annoying dog anyway. So that's fine. But
you have a great dog now.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Now it's unbelievable. So I moved back home with my parents, and and then my only coping mechanism at that point was alcohol, drinking. And so.
And was that just because the feelings were too big, or what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess so. It was just really the only thing I knew. And I had no concept or understanding of alcoholism, what alcoholism was, anything like that. I just found myself reflexively, without even putting any thought into it, like literally drinking until I was blacked out every day. And
at your parents' house?
At my parents' house.
Did they know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They witnessed the whole thing. And they would talk to me about it. But then it started to get to the point where I would like pass out in various places in the house, like on the stairs. I would just fall asleep on the stairs. And they would and then also around this time I started to get some pretty serious health consequences too. At this point I was drinking a fifth of vodka and a 6-pack of Milwaukee's Best every day. And I would drink a fifth of vodka just to like get rid of the shakes and stabilize. And these shakes and these tingles I was getting, I thought I was just dehydrated and not getting enough sleep. I had no idea that these were effects from alcohol dependency. And then I was just so in denial about it. I don't know. I thought that I was just doing what everybody did. Everybody drinks, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not, I didn't understand. And my vision of an alcoholic is like that dude at the side of the highway with like a sign that's looking all disheveled. Like, that's an alcoholic. That's definitely not me. I got a job. I have a car. I'm just fine.
That's really interesting. Everybody I've talked to with an alcohol problem who's like addressing it is like, I just get drunk. I'm not a drunk.
Exactly.
It's always that sort of moment of denial.
Yep, exactly. And then I started getting seizures. So I started having seizures where I would like lose consciousness. I remember it always, like, I would be aware at first. They would come out of nowhere, and I'd have no I would like regain consciousness. I'd be in the back of an ambulance. One time I'd be in the hospital. Sometimes I'd just be like by myself on the side of the road. And I remember one time I like regained consciousness, and I would regain consciousness walking down the street. Like I was already, and they would tell me that when I came out of it, I was talking, I was verbalizing, I was moving, but I have no recollection of any of that. So I remember one time walking down, I remember I was at the bus waiting for the bus. I don't even know if I had a car at that point. I don't know why I'd be waiting for a bus. Oh, I got a DUI around that time too. And I did a rear end accident in my car on the highway and got a DUI, and nobody was hurt, but I rear ended somebody. And, and so I maybe it was that in that interim where I didn't have a car, but I remember waiting for the bus. And the next thing I know, I'm walking down the street, and some lady's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" She's like, "You're bleeding." And I'm like, "What?" And I looked in the glass of a shop, and I was like, blood coming down my head. And it all came back to like, oh, I guess I had another seizure. So I walked back to the bus station where my last recollection was where I was. And it was like maybe a half mile away. I was just walking with no recollection of having walked at all. And I saw where I remember I was sitting, there was a little pool of blood on the ground right there. So I must have just seized out, fell on the ground, hit my head right in public there on the freaking sidewalk. I can't imagine like if anybody saw it, or I mean, it's interesting. Nobody called for, it was at the bus station. So
Yeah.
who knows, dude? It's so crazy.
So what were your personal relationships like during that time?
I don't really remember having any personal relationships. Like I had some friends, and we would go out, but I don't even really remember if they were inviting me around at this point. I remember I was always the guy that like drank so much, but at this point in my life, all my focus was getting off work, getting home as quickly as I could so I could just drink until I blacked out. That was my only focus these days. And this went on for probably 6 months at this point. And then so my body was definitely like, I learned now, now I've learned that like the seizures are really like end stage health complications. Like this is like the stuff that starts to happen right before you die from alcohol. So my parents had finally had enough. They said, "You got to go, dude. Like you're out." So they
you got tough loved.
Yep. So I actually left, and I just went to go. My plan was just fine. I'll just go live on the streets of Portland. I don't care. So I remember going downtown Portland and lived on the streets for a few nights and just kind of like mingled with the street people there. And like they kind of showed me like the ropes a little bit, and I had a little bit of money. Oh, and I'd gotten fired at this point, of course, too, because like I was just a wreck.
Yeah, you couldn't hold it together.
Yeah. So then yeah.
So but, tell me what the ropes of living on the streets of Portland, Oregon are.
Well, okay, so I was like, they were just like, I don't know, we would just hang out. I don't even really remember much about it. Like I remember like there was a homeless shelter that I'd go try and stay at some nights, but you had to be sober to go there. And there's a big line, you have to go wait in line. And I remember this one night, I was like, I'm not standing that line. I'll wait till the line dies down. I went across the street and like sat down at this bar and had a couple drinks and just was watching the line, waiting for the line to go down. And then I went back in line once they started to move, and I got to the front to go in, and the guy's like, "You can't come in." I'm like, "Why not?" He's like, "Dude, you were sitting across the street drinking, and we saw you." I'm like, "Oh shit. All right. Well, all right." So
busted.
Yeah. So, but I did remember staying in that homeless shelter a few times. And so anyway, that didn't last very long, maybe a week at the most. And then I learned about probably the best thing that they taught me on the street was there's a place called the Hooper Detox Center in Portland, which allows it's a detox place. So, but the rule about that place is you have to go, you get your name on the list, and then you just have to come back the next day and check in again. And then you'll move up the list. And then so the nurse there said, just don't stop drinking, whatever you do. Just continue to drink, because if you just stop cold turkey, then your body will, you can have,
you can shut down all sorts of ways.
You can die from that. Yeah. Alcohol withdrawals. So they told me just keep coming back. And then I eventually ended up getting to bed there, went through a medical detox. This is my first experience with any of this. And you know what? I take that back. There was one time that I had gone to treatment before this. This whole period of my life is such a blur. Yeah. I remember I went into treatment at my parents' behest while I was still living with them. And it was about a 3-week, it was a 28-day program. And it was just kick me out. I immediately went back to drinking because I was like, that's, I just won't drink as much as I was before, but I went even harder. And then that's what led to then that total crash out. And then my parents kicked me out. So I'd already been to treatment once. Now, when I was in this detox center, I was kind of hopeless and really didn't know what to do. I feel like I was very hopeless, let's just say.
Do you remember what that was like when you were hopeless? Like, were you just thinking, I'm done?
Yeah, well, it was the only time in my life that the thought even crossed my mind that maybe I should just end it all. And I don't think I've ever mentioned that to anybody, but I do remember I talked to a nurse about it. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to go on living. And she talked to me, and it wasn't even like a serious thing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, I was thinking that was my only option. That was like literally my only option. I didn't think I had other options. I was that's how hopeless I was. And I've never felt that way ever since. So just for the record, I'm not suicidal. I talk a lot about a lot of things. I'll talk about a lot of things on the air that, all right, you guys, I'm not suicidal. Just let you know.
Right. Love my appreciate that. But it's, it's not a surprise when somebody's that far into addiction that you don't see another option.
Yeah.
To solve whatever problem you're solving with alcohol.
Exactly.
Here's a comment from Tori. Lots of folks think the jaundice is the early sign of liver failure, but that's not all. Seizures, the weird body smell, sickly sweet like rotting fruit, memory loss, I can't say that word, syndrome, Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. That's apparently what's going on there.
Yeah.
And that's like a fifth of vodka a day is a lot.
And that, the fifth of vodka was just to like stabilize.
Start. Yeah, that was just a start.
Yep. And so, and when I got that DUI, it was at like 1 p.m. and I was driving over to see this gal I was dating at the time. I guess I managed to find a gal that would date me, which says a lot about her. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but I was driving over to her house just to go hang out with her, and I had just drank just enough to stabilize myself and be normal. I don't know if it was the full fifth, but by the time I'd hit the car in front of me, police showed up, arrested me. I went to the police station, did a breathalyzer. It was 0.34, which is like 4 times the legal limit. And that was just me baseline normal. So I can't even imagine like how far gone I was at this point. Like that always was just shocking to me. Like the judge and like all the people were like, 4 times the legal limit. That's so crazy. And in my mind, I'm like, that was just like getting started for the day. Like that's crazy. Like,
so when you had that experience and heard that, did you think they're weird and I'm just acclimated, or did you think maybe I have a problem?
I don't even know if at that time I considered it a problem. I thought maybe I was just like maybe a badge of honor at that point. I honestly don't remember what I thought about it. I remember, at this point there was starting to be lots of consequences for my drinking, but it was still not enough to break the spell, break me out of it. So anyway, when I was in that detox center, I got word from my parents, and my grandma was willing to pay for me to go to like an extended 90-day program. And that was a miracle. So that was like a miracle that happened. I went and I did that 90-day program. It was in Eugene, and it was great. And I decided to leave that program, and because I at this point, this is my first introduction to 12-step, and started going to a lot of meetings in the Eugene area. I started to get to know people. I found a sponsor, and I just decided to stay in the Eugene area. So I moved out of that program and just completely changed my whole course and moved into a recovery house in Eugene. And that started all that. I was able to stay sober about a year. I got a job, car, my own apartment. I was like, hey man, I'm great. Look at me now. I'm the king again. So I stopped going to meetings. I'm like, I don't need that anymore. I'm good. And then what happened? I started drinking again. And I was like, as long as I don't drink any hard alcohol, I'll just drink a little beer every now and then. Maybe smoke a little weed. I'll be fine. And no, that it doesn't work that way. Like in the recovery community, we say, once you've crossed the Rubicon into being an alcoholic, there's no going back. Like you become a pickle. Like a pickle can't go back to being a cucumber. Once you become a pickle, you're a pickle. And in the literature, it describes how you're like a person who's lost their legs. You don't grow new ones. That's it. And that was my experience. It's interesting too, because when and this is just such a weird phenomenon. It's like how amazing our bodies are and just how mysterious our bodies are. But like, so at this point I had probably about 18 months completely sober. when I went back to drinking, it's not like you start over when you're 16 years old and, you know, you have a beer and you're feeling a little loose and feeling good. Almost immediately, I went back to having seizures and having all of those consequences again. It's like your body picks up right where it left off.
Whoa.
Yeah, it really was so crazy. Like within a matter of days or weeks, I was back to drinking to the point where I was then completely fully dependent, completely like having seizures again. It's nuts how our bodies do that. And I've read literature since then talking about that phenomenon where
And then the more you detox, the harder it is each time, isn't it?
yeah. You don't get to start over. It's not like you're in high school again. Like you're back to where you were, literally. I had no idea. It's really spooky how that works. But anyway, so and then it all kind of really took a turn when I was at some folks were walking by my house and they said, "Hey, do you party?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Come on in. Let's party." They pulled out a little pipe that had some, what I learned later was meth in it. Okay. And I took a hit of that and I was like, whoa, dude. Okay. Well, now this is what I've been looking for my whole life. And I was like, can I get some more of that? And they're like, yeah, here, give us $20. We'll go get you some. So I gave them $20 and they came back with some. And I was like, all right, cool. And then they would come back by, hey, do you want any more? Yeah, here's another $20. Go get it for me. And so, what I've since learned is that that's called turning somebody out. When you find, like, so these were street people that happened to be walking by, they saw an easy mark. What they do is they will take somebody who's not addicted to meth, that they see who has resources or a place to stay or a car or a vehicle or whatever they can parasite off of. They will get that person addicted to whatever substance, heroin. I mean, this happens in like the human trafficking world quite a bit too. You'll get them hooked on heroin, meth, and then you become their supplier of that substance, and then they're fully dependent on you. So I got turned out by a couple of homeless people. I was like, it was my own decision, but I was like, yeah, give me some more of that. And so I'd give them $20. They'd bring me a 20 bag. Later on, did I find out what an actual 20 bag looked like? So they were taking my 20, going getting it, giving me a crumb, and then keeping the rest, obviously. So it's like, I don't blame them. I was an easy mark, okay. But anyway, I got kind of sucked into that world. I really did, and I started, to the point where so I would show up to work tweaked out. I was working at a gun shop, dude. I was doing background checks at a gun shop at this point, and I was like tweaked out hard, staying up for days at a time. And they fired me because I filled out the 4473 form because that has to be meticulously filled out, doing the background checks. And apparently they showed me a form and they're like, did you do this? And it was like, I'd like turned the piece of paper sideways and just scribbled all the way across it. And I was like, I don't remember doing that, but I guess. And so they fired me. So anyway, and they probably knew, but they didn't. It wasn't like they called me out about drug use. They never drug tested me or anything. They just fired me. So
they were like, yeah, he can't be selling guns.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started collecting unemployment, though. They allowed me to get unemployment. So for a good 3 months there, I was getting free money, and all that went to the drugs. And then I started trying to sell it. So I was trying to sell it. I didn't do a whole good job of that, but then that gets you deeper, one layer deeper into the underworld there, where I'm selling it. And then, but I wasn't paying rent, so I got evicted. And then that's where I learned all the life lessons about living on the streets. And so I got evicted.
At this point, did your parents know what was going on, or did they?
Well, this is kind of a sad part of the story. So I again, all my own doing. I take full ownership of all this. But when I was in that 90-day treatment program, my parents came down for a family session. And part of the family session was if I ever was to relapse, I wasn't to have any contact with them for 90 days. That's like a boundary that we all put in place. I'm like, okay, cool. So in my mind, I'd relapsed full blown. And so I wasn't going to contact them. So I kind of disappeared. I kind of fell off the map with them. And this was about 2014 was the last phone call I had with them at that time. And so this saga lasted about 2 years. So I was out there for about 2 years.
And they had no idea where you were.
No. And so I'd probably been using for about 2.5 years. But like I remember the last phone call I had was, okay, so what happened was I didn't have a job, didn't have an income, and then eventually the unemployment ran out. And I have this background in retail, especially with Home Depot. I'm very comfortable. I know how that operation works inside and out. And I found that I had an affinity and a real talent for shoplifting. and Home Depot was like my number one. I had a little bit of resentment towards Home Depot, so I started shoplifting from Lowe's, Home Depot. There's a place called Jerry's there in Eugene, and kind of make the rounds of, Walmart. So really the way I supported my habit was just going around shoplifting. And I came up with all these various different means and methods of doing it. Like I would go into the store with uniforms. I invented my own little magnet device that unlocked all the power tools, the little magnet strips that lock, the little cables that lock the power tools. Like I knew how those work. So I made my own using the magnets that they sell at Home Depot. And, I had all these elaborate schemes. Like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't tell all of them on there. But anyway, I knew how to run game on those people. And I supported myself pretty substantially for that 2 years. But then I started to get arrested. I got a little theft 2, a little theft 3 here and there. And then one time I got one that was over $1,000. So that was a theft 1 charge. But anyway, I was going to say, like, the last time I talked to my parents at that time, it was the first time I ever got arrested. And I was stealing from a 7-Eleven, and the store clerk jumped on me and like beat me down, like grabbed me, put me in a headlock, punched me in the head until I like lost consciousness, and then kept me in a chokehold until the cops showed up. And so that was my first time getting arrested. And in my mind, I was still such a mama's boy, like didn't even know. Like I was like, oh, I'll just call my parents, they'll bail me out. And they're like, nope. So that was that. And so then I just kind of went off the map for the next couple of years with them. So anyway, all this came to a head in so I got that theft 1 charge, and they gave me a deferred sentence. They said, you can take this diversion program. You're on probation, but if you do anything wrong again, you're going to go serve a 22-month sentence in prison. And at that time, I wasn't ready to stop. So I just completely absconded, didn't check in, didn't follow any of the rules. And then I got another theft 1 charge in a different county. And at this point, I was like, I couldn't even go into any Home Depots or Targets or anything like that in Eugene because they were on me. They knew my game. So my big plan was I had to get out of Oregon. And again, they let me out in this different county. I thought I was going to prison, but they let me out with a court date. And I was like, what the heck? So I had these 2 pending charges, and I knew that any other police contact was going to mean that I was going to prison. So there was a person I was paying to drive me around. I didn't have a car. And we had this racket where we would hit stores. They would be the getaway driver, and we would split whatever money we made. And so my big grand strategy was to go to Portland, where they had like 20 Home Depots, and we were just going to go around, hit all the Home Depots. I was going to get enough money to buy my own car, and then I was going to leave the state. And I was in contact with somebody in LA who was also a drug user. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to LA and flee the state. They're not going to extradite me over this crap, even if I do get in trouble with the police. And I'll just live in the mean streets of LA. And so we did that. We went up there, and then over the course of about a week, maybe 2 weeks, we hit all the Home Depots in the store, and I saved up enough, a few $1,000 to get a car. And it was one night we were sitting there, and I contacted the guy to get a car off of Craigslist, and we were waiting we were waiting for him to get off work, and we were sitting in a Target parking lot. And my friend went into the house, was like, I'm going to go in the store real quick. You need anything? I'm like, no, I'm just going to sit here. I am not going into any Targets. Like, because even in Portland Targets, I was getting chased out like from my behavior in Eugene. Like I remember being in a Target, like one of our first days there, and the loss prevention, like I had a thing in my hand. They walked up, just grabbed it out of my hand. They said, get out of here. I'm like, oh, damn. They like APB is out on me, dude, all over the state. So anyway, my friend went into the store, and we were living in my friend's car. It was like a big Subaru. And so it was like, very homeless looking. It was very, very conspicuous vehicle. And we were sitting in this Target parking lot, I guess, in relatively nice part of Portland. And all of a sudden I hear knock at the window, and I look over, and it's a Portland police officer. And he's like, sir, they don't allow you to loiter here. And yeah, I had a big torch next to me used to light your pipe. And it was like wrapped in duct tape, looked total tweaker status. And so there was a lot of reasonable suspicion with me sitting there. And the cop's like, can you step out? He's like, what's that? And I'm like, well, it's for lighting cigarettes. He's like, nope, step out of the car. So I was like, okay, jig is up. I had a little bit of drugs on me. So I said, I have drugs on me. I have a pipe under the seat. My friend doesn't know about it. Please, I'll take the hit for it. They don't know anything about it. And so that was that. I got arrested that night. That was August 27th, 2016. And yeah, I went off to Multnomah County Jail and ended up getting sentenced there, doing a couple weeks, and then got extradited back to Eugene, got sentenced on those on that theft one, and they gave me 22 months in prison. And from there, I did go to Oregon State Penitentiary. Was the first stop after the little they have you go spend 30 days at like a little intake facility where they kind of gauge your activity and figure out where to place you. And I still had an open charge, and because I was a medium risk, that meant I was going to a medium max facility, either OSCI, Oregon State Correctional Institute, or Oregon State Penitentiary. And they sent me to OSP, dude. And I was like, wait, there's got to be some mistake. I'm like a minimum, like Class C felony guy. Like, what are you doing sending me here? I'm supposed to go to a minimum yard. So I was like scared out of my mind. And at this point, it was, I'd already made the rounds to all the different counties getting sentenced. So at this point, I was been sober for about 90 days. And I was like convinced that, I was never going to use ever again. And so actually, yeah. And then after 90 days, I called my parents from one of the jails that I was in, and they didn't pick up. And then a couple of days later, I received a letter from my mom that said, and it was my mom, signed from my mom and dad. It said, we have no idea what happened to you these last few years. Like, we've had to basically deal with it as like a death in the family. And we've kind of just like, you calling the other day was a huge disruption in our lives. And we can't support you anymore. And they actually said, never, ever contact us again under any circumstances ever again. And so they cut me off. And honestly, to this day, I've never had any contact with them, coming on 9 years later. Well, that would have been like, so 2016. So yeah, coming up on 9 years. But yeah, the last phone call I had was with my mom from jail, 2014. So it's been over 10 years since I've had any contact with my mom and dad. I'm in a little contact with my sister, but she's not really sympathetic. And she knows I'm doing well, and I know they know I'm doing well and thriving, honestly. But yeah, it's kind of, that's sad. And again, that's all my doing right there. That's 100% my doing. I take full ownership, and I've done a lot of work around it. And in recovery, we do what's called living amends, where I live in such a way that would make them proud, even though there's no way I can make direct amends to them. But anyway, just to wrap that up, I'm coming to a good stopping place here in just a second. So I landed in Oregon State Penitentiary, and I didn't know what to expect. And I was really scared, and they put me in a cell within my first hour with this guy. And he was like, yeah, we get high around here. I'm like, cool, dude, whatever. I didn't want to look like a bitch or a punk or whatever. And he had drugs in the cell, and he's like, here you go. Chop me up a line of meth. He had meth in his cell. Like the first 5 minutes I was in a cell in prison, I was getting a line chopped up for me, and I snorted it. And, obviously that's not the greatest experience ever, being high on meth in a prison cell, but like, that was it. I think I did it one more time, like the next day, and then we ran out, and that was it. And then I got transferred to it, whatever. Never saw that guy again. But that was the last time I ever used any substance whatsoever. That was in, I did a line of meth in a prison cell at Oregon State Penitentiary. And then after that, I had like this epiphany in this other jail cell I was in. Like it feels like the sky brightened, everything, like the fog lifted, and reality just set in like a ton of bricks. And I looked around, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in prison? Like, how the hell did this happen? Like, this is not who I am. I'm like a decent guy. Like, I'm a good guy. Like, what in the hell is going on? And it really just like shattered my whole paradigm. Like, it really just like, finally, I think the adrenaline of the last few months had just finally worn off. And it was just like this huge sinking feeling of, oh my God, how did this happen? And so that was it. And
do you think that was coming from without you, from outside you, or inside you?
I think it was in me. I think that was just the final, I broke completely. That was just completely breaking every illusion that I might have.
There you are. You've lost everything, including your freedom.
Yeah. And
you're like, did you realize it was of your own making at that point, in that moment?
I would say maybe to a certain degree, but the accountability piece came to a full understanding through the process of like, working the 12 steps and really diving deep into the underlying reasons why and how and all this stuff. So maybe a little bit. Yeah, I feel like I did. But at the same time, like it took a while to really fully grasp.
Did they have things in prison for you
Yeah.
to deal with it? Is that what happened next?
Yeah. So they had 12-step meetings that you can attend voluntarily. And then I was actually, as a part of my sentence, I was given the option, if I earned it, like on good behavior, I was eligible to go to a 6-month in prison treatment program. And if I completed that, then I was going to be able to take some months off of my sentence. So at about the 8-month mark, I was finally approved to go to that program. So I did that 6-month program and I excelled at it. And I was able to get out about 8. I ended up serving 14 months total on a 22-month sentence. So I got out early with the condition that, hey, if you mess up at all, you're going back and doing the rest of your sentence. So, the parole portion of it, I was like strict. But the day I got out of prison, so this is where my current journey started, I guess. I ended up at this minimum facility where that treatment program was. It was about 9 hours away. It was over in Baker City, right on the Idaho border. And they released me, put me on a bus. I'd saved up a little money. My whole goal was to save up enough money to get a phone when I got out, like just working in the kitchen and stuff. I just saved all my money. I didn't buy anything while I was in there. And I got out the first thing, and I got on a bus and they gave me like a box. And then when they discharge you, because you don't get to keep anything that you came in with, that all gets just incinerated, I guess. I don't know, or something. So they release you, they take you up to this place with a bunch of donated clothing. And it's almost like they want to embarrass you because all the donated clothes are just like I couldn't even wear them in public. They're just like so crazy. The only thing I could find that was even acceptable was like a Jiffy Lube outfit. It looked like a auto mechanic, like short, like pants and shirt, like a matching. So I chose that. And I left with that, literally the clothes on my back and a box with some paperwork and like a shampoo bottle and a bar of soap. And that was literally the only thing I had in this entire freaking world, dude. No friends, no family. All the friends I had were probably out there still using if they were still alive. I didn't know anybody. So
how'd you feel in that moment? Did you feel lost or?
Yeah, very lost, very hopeless. Like in my mind, I was like, man, I'm not even be able to get a job. Like very, very, very hopeless. So, but what ended up happening is but I was determined. So the very first day was me driving back to Eugene, and then I settled. And kudos to Oregon. Like if there is one thing that Oregon's good at with like all their communism and stuff is having like
a halfway house sort of thing.
A good halfway house, like a decent halfway house, dude. Like I got to give it to the commies on that one. But anyway, that's a W for the commies. But yeah, so I paroled to this place called Sponsors, which was a halfway house, and they had a great program, and they helped me they got me like work boots and clothes, but the second day, like my first full day free in Eugene, I went to a meeting. And I basically shared my story and said, I just got out. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. But the only thing I do know is that I just don't want to get loaded. That's it. And I had a couple guys come up to me afterwards. And one of them ended up becoming my sponsor. And he took me through all the 12 steps and just like an amazing guy. Yeah. And so that
what do you think was inside you that made you determined not to go back at that point to substance abuse?
Oh, totally. Well, I mean, again, I've been completely broken. And so I feel that, and being on the inside of prison, I feel like there's a lot of reform that should be done 100%. But at the same time, that's exactly what I needed. There was nothing out there that would have brought about that change from the inside out, that other than having that experience. So I'm grateful for the experience for sure. But, what was your question? Like I
was just asking, like, why did you have the fortitude to stay sober? Yeah. Because a lot of people don't.
Exactly. And I saw so many people I paroled with ended up going right back. And to me, and it really had to do with freedom. I remember being in there. They make it easy on you. Like I was in the band, the worship team in the church. So I got to have an acoustic guitar at my bunk. So we would just hang out playing guitar, working out on the workout pile, walking laps, like sunbathing was like a big thing. All these big tough guys, like in the middle of the summer, they'd strip down to their tighty whities and like lay in the suntan, you know, like it was a very comfortable existence at this minimum yard I was on. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, do not let yourself get comfortable here. This is unacceptable. Like this not having freedom is unacceptable. And so don't get comfortable here. And so to me, not being able to be free was unacceptable. And that was a big part of it. But also, you know, I had just completely decided that there was no way. And that was the thing too. I didn't have any tools. I didn't have the coping. Like I had some, you know, that 6-month program was pretty decent, but like it was my determination to jump into the program of recovery is what really saved me. So after that first meeting, that became my life, was 12-step recovery, going to meetings every day, multiple meetings a day. That was my life. And it was that way for many years. You know, that a lot of people, you know, put shade on the 12-step program for various reasons. And I get it, but our motto is like, it works if you work it, as with so many things in life. Like you get in what you put out of it. And I completely immersed myself in it. And I was doing service work, like volunteering in all these various different capacities, like giving back to the recovery community. And it's just like, that became my life. That became my new, you know, that just
during that time, did you uncover what your underlying problems were that led to the addiction? Or
yeah. And that's when we started diving into like the childhood, like the running around, the criminality aspect of it, the rebellion, just using it as a coping mechanism. That's kind of the things we talked about. But yeah, I mean, the whole point of the 12 steps, like they only mention, depending on which 12, and I'm being ambiguous about the 12-step program because that's part of the traditions, is you're not supposed to say which program. You're not supposed to talk about it publicly. Like it's one of the things you're not supposed to talk about it in media. Mm-hmm. But what we do is we talk about it in ambiguous terms. So you don't know what program I'm in. You don't know what I do. So if I crash out and I, you know, go do some horrific thing and make the headlines, it doesn't reflect bad on any particular program, is basically what it is, you know? So we're supposed to be anonymous about it in public. And so I speak about it in 12-step general terms, but, oh damn, I forgot the question again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The question is really, did you unravel your underlying core problems? Because like almost everybody I've talked to is linked addiction is like, yeah, addiction wasn't the problem.
Exactly.
Addiction was the symptom.
Exactly. And 100%. I mean, that's what the 12 steps is all about, is uprooting all that stuff. So drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever it is only mentioned in the first step. The rest of it is all character defects and just doing a personal inventory and developing a spiritual connection with something outside of yourself, and then giving back, like making amends and giving back. So the first part of that process is really diving in, you know, figuring out doing an inventory of all the bad things you've ever done and finding your character defects within those bad deeds and like kind of just rectifying it. So it's a deep dive into like a dark night of the soul, like just all that stuff. Like it's a powerful, powerful way. And so you do those steps with a sponsor who's done the steps. And so they take you through it in a way where they can help you understand and do it. And I've sponsored lots of guys over the years, and it's one thing to be going through it as the sponsee, the person who's being taken through the 12 steps. But for me, the real growth and the real, like what I find so valuable in it is then turning around and giving that back to somebody else. Like that has been a very huge part of my life over the last like almost 9 years, is just, you know, that being the one who takes people out of the, and you know, I ended up working as a drug and alcohol counselor. I went and got certified and did that for a few years until I got fired for not taking the shot. And then that set me on a whole new path. But anyway, but yeah, no,
Speaking of not taking drugs.
Exactly. Like they were trying at this treatment center, they were trying to force this unknown substance into me with a needle. And I'm like, no, dude, not going to happen. I was never into needles. I never even tried a needle once, thank God. But because that's when you really lose yourself, is once you start using intravenously. But anyway, I mean, that's really the gist of it. And then, yeah, that's really my backstory in terms of, I mean, yeah, that's it.
So what about that experience made you embrace what you're doing now? Because that led you to a position where you were in fact faced with another freedom choice, which is I can take this thing into my body I don't want in my body and keep this life I have, or I have to make a change.
Yeah.
So tell me
So,
what got you there.
it's a really funny. I've always tried to like kind of correlate the two, like where all that comes from. I feel like from what I've kind of like just exploration of myself here, I feel like a lot of the stuff from my early years, kind of what I talked about, the rebellion, the authority, the compliance, like just like uh such an inherent resistance to that kind of led me to being like not, and then just like seeing how the government works on the inside, I'm like, oh, they're just a bunch of idiots, dude. Like I've like being within the court system and the prison system, like they're a bunch of bureaucrats, dude. I'm not scared of these people. You know what I mean? And it's like people have this vision of what the government is, and it's like I've been chased by the police, I've been tackled by the police, I've been thrown in cop cars. Like I'm not afraid of the police. I'm not afraid of the government. Like I have fully experienced what the government can do, and I'm like, they're not that scary. Anyway, I'm just like, anyway, maybe there's a piece of that too. But then just I don't know. I feel like there's a level of resilience that I've gained going through all that. Unshakability, like anti-fragile mentality where it's like if something's a challenge, I'm like, I want that way. Like if there's an easy way and a hard way, I'm going to dive into the hard way because like it's just going to forge me into something even stronger, I guess. So that's just been my attitude. And when COVID happened and my understanding of what it was all about, I just instinctively went towards like trying to be an activist around all the different stuff. And I started to, it just took on a whole new path. And I think just my inherent, just stubborn, defiant nature like was really helpful in it, I guess. I don't know. But
Yeah. So how'd you end up in Tennessee from Oregon?
okay. Yeah. So really what happened, so Oregon was just, I mean, I'd made the decision by end of 2021 that I was going to move. I wasn't really sure where. And Tennessee.
So you were in Oregon through all the shutdown hell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, all of it. 2020.
Were you like, the fascists are taking over? Was that how you felt?
I mean, in 2020, we were pretty, we were very unsure about what was happening. We didn't know if this was like a complete totalitarian takeover. It really felt like that. That's why we were really trying to find community and just kind of rally together to withstand whatever was coming. But, things started to, I mean, it all kind of just shifted so much. And we realized it wasn't like going to be this big takeover, but still, the consequences of not taking a shot were pretty in your face. And it was happening to a lot of my friends, a lot of people I knew. So we just got to this point where I got to this point where I was done with Oregon. I was still trying to figure out where to go. I settled on Nashville. I'm like, I'm going to Nashville. I basically was talking about it. And I just basically packed up my truck and went sight unseen. And and I had already decided to go, and I was just going to go and figure it out when I got there, like find a place to stay and all this stuff. But like pretty much in the weeks leading up to it, a guy who listens to my show reached out to me and said, hey, I got a room for rent in Nashville if you want. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So that's where I landed. So very grateful for that guy. He allowed me to rent a room in his house for about a year until I was able to venture out on my own. And yeah, it's just been, Tennessee's been so amazing to me. Like it was just because I was not thriving in Oregon. I was like half the businesses had gone out of business. Like the gyms had just opened back up after like 18 months being shut down. Like it was like serious, crazy lockdown type situation. So I was not thriving. And it was so sad because so many of the people that I'd gotten sober with over the years, people that I'd been so heavily involved with in the recovery community, it was like me and a couple other people who didn't fall for the COVID thing. And all the people, because I was like on kind of the administration board for the whole area, like the people that kind of helped facilitate a lot of the administrative stuff for the whole area. And I was the only one out of like 13 people on that board that felt, I was like, they all wanted to shut down all the meetings. That was their first instinct, is we have to shut down all the meetings. And I'm like, no, you cannot do that. You can't
isolate people and then shut down their meetings, and are they going to drink their butts off or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. And so I became the bad guy. So all these people, like, and not just the bad guy, I was like the most hated person in the whole community. Like they hated me. You know what I mean? Because I was refuse. And so there was a group of us, like we were doing meetings in the park. We still carried the torch forward while they all insisted on shutting down meetings and doing them over Zoom, which, okay, great. But no, there was a group of us that felt the need to have in-person meetings still. And we were doing them in the park because they wouldn't allow any meetings to take place in any of the former facilities. And the facilities wouldn't even let us do the meetings there. So it was a very crazy time. But yeah, so all these people that I considered family that I'd gotten clean with for years, just all turned on me. I had to create a whole new Facebook page because every single one of my friends on Facebook like hated me now. You know, it's like I remember in the beginning, I remember coming on there and like, hey guys, guess what? Good news. It's not as scary as you think. Hey, look at this right here. There's like, and that made me the bad guy. Like, I was just trying to tell them that you don't have to be as scared as, but
yeah, anytime you didn't follow the narrative, you were public enemy number one. And I can only imagine what that was like in a state that bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Exactly. So anyway, so I just was like, I'm out. Nashville's calling, and I got here.
You already had the podcast, so you had a network.
Yep.
That's pretty badass.
Yep. I'd already been doing the podcasting. We started podcasting in 2020. We did a show called the Truthzilla podcast, and that show kind of fell apart. But then I transitioned over to Rebunked. And, but yeah, so I'd been in kind of the podcasting sphere for, a couple years up to that point, like coming up on, oh my gosh, I just passed the 5-year anniversary. It was on
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, June 7th was my first podcast ever. It was on a June 7th. I didn't even think of it, my podcast anniversary. But anyway, so, but yeah, I've been doing it for like 5 years now. And like, to me, it's like, I don't make a whole lot of money doing it. It's like, whatever. It's a passion. It's a hobby. It's something I love doing. But I've been able to network with so many amazing people through it. I will always do it just because it then leads to all the things that I am able to support myself with, and all the projects and collaborations and all the amazing cool stuff I've been able to do over these last 5 years all kind of stems from having a podcast and the networking I've done through that. So that's the value I get out of it. And I'll never let it go, for sure.
So describe how your life is now versus how it was before you came to Nashville.
Yeah. So like I said, in Oregon, I was not thriving. I was like the pariah of the community. And it was just like, I needed a change. So I came out here, and again, I was working as a drug and alcohol counselor. I still had certification. My plan was to come here and get back into that type of work. While I was applying for jobs at the different treatment centers here, I made a Facebook post that said, I've got a truck and some tools, and I'm available for some side gigs if anybody, needs help, like putting in a mailbox or changing your doorknobs or whatever. Like I'm a little handy. I worked at Home Depot for 6 years. I know about tools and stuff, and so that was like the extent of it. But that one Facebook post just blew up. I got so many people hitting me up, needing help with this and that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, holy crap. So I just filled up my schedule. And after a couple months of doing that, I realized, whoa, like did I just start my own handyman business? Like I accidentally started my own handyman business, and I just started doing that. And then I just started doing that ever since. And so that was 2022. And over the last 3 years, I've basically networked with all kinds of different contractors. I've been pulled in to help with like remodels and additions on houses. I've learned so much. I'm at the point now where I can do a lot of this stuff myself. I can do, like, my buddy and I got, like, last year, we got into doing decks. So like new decks, deck repair. We got really good at building decks. And so like now I have this skill set that's very valuable in the market here, and it's in very high demand. And I have to like turn business down a lot, or I send them over to my network. I'm like, hey, can you take this job? And it's like, it's just been a very life-changing thing. And so, Tennessee's been really good to me. I've found complete autonomy and freedom. And another thing too is, like, when I first moved here, I took Richard Grove's autonomy course, which is basically all about like getting into the entrepreneurial mindset and different strategies on how to do like digital marketing and stuff like that. And so that kind of unlocked this. That was like the same. He offered me a scholarship to take the course around the same time I just moved here and started my own renegade handyman business without any idea what I was doing. And so those kind of came together, which helped me on this new path of just breaking the 9-to-5 mentality, or like thinking I need like a paycheck every 2 weeks and stuff, and realizing the limitless potential of being your own boss and having your own offer that you can bring to the market. And, in whatever capacity that you can. So it's reframed so much of what I'm thinking. And now I'm like completely free. And now nobody can fire me for not taking a shot. I could say whatever I want on the air and no one's going to fire me. There's no repercussions. You can't do anything to me. I've completely removed the levers that used to be there to keep me in line, make me a good little boy. Well, all that's gone. And so now I'm like a free agent for freedom. And you can't stop me.
So this is my last question before I have you also just make sure people know how to connect with you.
Cool.
Because I know we're coming up. We just
I apologize. I got this obligation. And
no, that's okay. I don't usually go over time either, but
okay,
your
cool.
story is a good one. What advice do you have for people who are hesitating to take their next step towards freedom, whatever that looks like in their life?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, there's all this self-talk and that we tell ourselves. Like I'll give a good story about like the podcasting, like starting podcasting. Okay. Well, I got two things to say on it. I'm going to write one down here just so I don't forget. But so basically the podcast went in before we started Truthzilla, my buddy and I, who were about to start the show, we wanted to get the word out about how COVID, all this stuff was like actually kind of like the New World Order. Like, hey, this might be the New World Order thing that everybody's been talking about. So we wanted to get the word out about it. And so we were like, how about we make shirts, right? We make shirts and we'll make shirts that talk about some of the facts and make funny little stuff. And then we both listened to lots of podcasts. We're like, well, why don't we start a podcast? And we're like, no, what's the point of that? There's already so many podcasts out there. Like, who's going to listen to us? Like now, but then we decided to just do it. And then we just put all that fear and doubt aside and we just did it. And so just in the context of starting a podcast, I have so many people reaching out to me, like, how do I start a podcast, this and that? And my biggest piece of advice is like, just, you're going to want to put in so many things in front of you that you feel like you need to do before you start doing it. Like you have to have the perfect studio and the perfect mic and the perfect lighting and all this stuff. It's like, no, just press the record button and go. You'll figure it out as you go. Just, the most important thing is press the record button. Like whatever's between you and the record button, you have to just clear that out of the way. Forget about it. Okay. And you can apply that to people who are hesitant about whatever their next step is towards freedom. You're going to put all these thoughts and all these things in front of you that are like, oh, well, I got to do this and that. It's like, no, just do it. Okay. Clear out all that stuff and you will figure it out as you go. I promise. Like we are not meant to this is like not a universe of scarcity. It's the absolute exact opposite. Like this is a universe of just complete abundance and you will be provided for and taken care of. If you then to the next thing, which is sticking to your principles. That is the most important thing for me that I found is that like, when I stuck to my principles, when it mattered, I had consequences for it. When I refused to take the shot, I had immediate consequences for it. I lost a job. I lost all kinds of friends and, all kinds of stuff. But then that delivered me to where I'm at today. And had I compromised on any of those principles, I would be a vaccinated, miserable guy working as a social worker in Eugene, Oregon right now, dude, in an office. And so that's what not sticking to my principles would have led to and taking the easy route. But because I stuck to my principles and carried on, now I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams, and every single aspect of my life is aligned with those principles. And it's just phenomenal. And then the last thing I'll say is in terms of substance use, if you feel like you are in a place you're trapped with, you're drinking too much or whatever, you have a family member, more importantly, I have a lot of people who have family members that reach out to me. The most important thing to understand is that like the desire to change is not going to be brought about by anything externally. It has to be something that arises from within. A person will never stop drinking or using drugs if by you putting, like you telling them or doing an intervention is like, no, it's not going to stop. That's not going to happen. The only thing that's going to be brought about is them to hit such a devastating rock bottom that they snap out of it and they decide that they want to do something different. Right. And so so now I'm speaking in terms of like a family member, right? The most loving thing you can do is to use the tough love approach, completely cut them off, give them no enabling whatsoever. And just say, but then the caveat being that as soon as you want to change and you want help, I'll drop what I'm doing to help you. But until then, there's nothing I can do for you. That's really, from my experience working in the field for many years, it's really the only way to handle a situation like that. If you're doing anything like doing their laundry for them or giving them like $20 or whatever, that keeps them trapped in their addiction. And that it may appear and feel like the easy way, the loving thing, but that's not. that keeps them trapped in their addiction. They have to suffer enough consequences to where they're finally willing to make a change themselves. And then speaking to the people who may feel like they are trapped in just a hopeless state of substance use in that cycle, just know you don't have to do it alone. That's the number one thing. There's so many people out there who have been exactly where you're at, and there is a path out. I absolutely promise. And it's easier. And the funny saying is that it's easier to get sober than it is to stay sober. So getting sober, like that first week, it's all right. You go to a detox facility, they'll give you some pills to zone you out a little bit, and you'll come out of it. And then the work begins. But really taking that first step, I just, realize you don't have to do it alone. Reach out for help. Go to a meeting, a 12-step meeting in your community. There's thousands of them every day, all the time. Walk into one, say, I'm so-and-so, and I don't know what I'm doing. And they'll scoop you right up, and they'll definitely provide you with the help that you need. So that's the number one thing. Just know that you don't have to do it alone. You can't do it alone. You absolutely cannot do it alone. You have to have other people in your community to carry you through. And that's the solution. That's how we do it. Whether it's freedom, that's just the solution to everything, is like find your people, and we just kind of get through it together. So there you go.
Well, those are great words. How do people listen to your podcast, find you online? I mean, I'll have links, your link tree in the show notes, but
cool. Rebunked.news is the link tree. I've been so busy, I haven't even put out a Rebunked episode in like 3 weeks, but I've been focusing on Grand Theft World. Grand Theft World's every Sunday night with Richard Grove. We do a historical deep dive into all the current events and explain why you're seeing what you're seeing, and to disambiguate all the propaganda, and show you the real inner workings of how the world works. It's a 7-hour show every Sunday night. It starts at 8:30 p.m. till the wee hours of the morning. It's so crazy.
Why Nicole Sauce will not be live on that show?
No, we have guests, and we have them on.
No, I mean, like in your comments for very long.
Yeah. Well, no, but we need to have you on, and because we do guests like in the first hour. You come on.
Oh yeah, I could do that.
So we'll set that up for sure. But yeah. So other than that, yeah, just find me on all the socials. I'm at Rebunked News and all that. So, but Nicole, thank you so much for having me. This is great. Thank you I feel good. See, the thing about this whole recovery thing is like the 12th step is, okay, now that you've gotten this information, now you go out in the world and give it back to others. So hopefully somebody resonates with this. Hopefully, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you, want any further clarification about any of the stuff I talked about, especially around recovery. I love talking to people about that. But for me, it's like, I'm going to walk away here right now, feeling really good. Like, hopefully I gave back and somebody heard a message that resonates, and I was able to carry the message to somebody that needed to hear it. So thank you. This helps me in my recovery by putting this message out there. So,
well, thanks for being on the show, Scott.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. I pulled him out of the studio because I know he has an appointment to go to, and I'm going to do the show wrap up so he doesn't have to feel like he's stuck on the show while he goes to his next, and he's waving to me in the studio. So I'm assuming he doesn't. Anyway, guys, so this podcast, the Living Free podcast, is not actually always about recovery, but the first two people that we've learned from who have built a life that they love, that may have been completely different from what they thought they were going to do, did end up with problems, and their solution was substance abuse. And then they had to reach rock bottom and fix that. And I know, based on feedback from the episode we did last week, which I broke out into 3 episodes because it was so long, that there are a lot of us in our network who have had substance abuse issues ourselves, or other, addiction related things that may not be substance specifically, but also have had relationships destroyed with loved ones who fell into addiction. And so I really appreciate Scott going kind of different from what he talks about at Rebunked News or Grand Theft World, right? Where he's more, in fact, if you want to get some hard hitting freedom stuff, go check that stuff out. But to share the personal side of how he's, gone from a kid who didn't do well in college, who was starting to drink, and, building a potential career at Home Depot, falling into addiction, everything that helped him from there, and then how he came back out of it. That's really, those sorts of stories can inform us how we can help our loved ones or how we can help ourselves. So I appreciate him being so honest with that. Next week will be the Tuesday live for the Living Free podcast, assuming that we're really doing it. I need to double check because we may have one person on vacation. If not, on the audio podcast, I'll be replaying one of the previous interviews that we've done this year to get ready for that. We're going to be flowing into Independence Day next week. And then, then I get to travel in July. So thanks everybody for showing up today. If you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, grab some coffee at hollowroast.com. I've got a really awesome cold brew blend that you can get. With that, go out, make it a great week.